Cool, cool.
Hey, this is Pablo from Abundancia Mindset, and this is my guest, Frankie.
Hey guys, I'm Franky.
And we're attempting at a podcast, our second episode. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background, what I want to get out of this is to bring different guests, different episodes, right? Different backgrounds, tell them a little bit of the background, but mainly, again, this is a personal finance the podcast, right? And but what I want to leave the guest with, or the listener, is with some blueprints about what is it that you do. I know we're both big into side hustles. Frankie has been running a vending machine business for a while, and he also does a transportation business as well. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of like the format that we want to follow, right? So I guess let's get started a little bit with your background. Tell me a little bit about your background, Frankie.
So like Pablo said, I've been a diesel mechanic for like over 10 years. But I didn't like the aspect that I had to work really hard, and I don't feel like I reaped as much benefits. So at one point, I just kind of looked into other things, and I just ended up getting into transportation. I bought my own truck, and I started doing container intermodal work in Houston.
What is that?
That's basically where we just move containers through the port, because Houston's a big port city. So there's a lot of things moved, exported and imported out of the ports in Houston. That's something I only found out recently, because I tried driving 10 plus years ago. My dad got me into it, and I was driving all over the country, and I hated it.
Is that the shotgun? Is that like they call them a shotgun? There's a term.
They call it OT. Oh, you're hot shot.
Hot shots. Yeah.
No, hot shots. People are in like trucks, like Dodge Rams or, and they pull smaller trailers. No, this is like you're in an 18-wheeler. OTR trucking is when you're running all over the country.
Okay.
And I hated it. I hated being far from home. I hated sleeping in my truck every night. I mean, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people like it, but it's not for me. It sounds like I'm dogging it, but there's tons of people that do it, and they seem to be happy.
You know what's so funny? It's not a funny thing. It's an interesting thing. I saw a picture of an older gentleman. He's been driving for, I think, 30-something years, but half of his face was more.
Yeah.
He had a lot of wrinkles, right? And that's sun
And the
exposure.
sun hitting-
Yeah, it's nuts, man. Like, so if you have a chance, look it up on Google Images. It's real.
I know what you mean. It's UV rays is a real thing.
Yeah.
And if you could just tint your windows, it would fix that. I don't know, just going sidetracking a little. If you could just tint your windows, but the federal DOT laws does not allow you to tint your windows when you're a commercial truck driver. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. They want to be able to look in your truck. I understand the safety aspect, but at the same time, I don't know. But anywho, I did that 10 plus years ago. I hated it, and I decided I didn't want anything to do with trucking, so I went to being a diesel mechanic. Because I always had a curiosity for how things work, and taking things apart and putting them back together. So I became a diesel mechanic. I did that for a good part of my life, my working life. And then at one point, I just kind of saw that I wasn't getting anywhere. It was a job, but it was like a paycheck to paycheck kind of deal. As I was learning more financially, I didn't really see it getting me anywhere. So I kind of started looking to other things, and through networking, I found out that you can be like a local truck driver and still make a respectable living. And so I jumped into that, and I haven't looked back ever since. I have 2 trucks now in operation. I drive one of them, and I have a driver in the other. And then I also got into, I guess, side hustle, which is a vending machine business. I hate the word side hustle. I know it's a thing.
Yeah.
I know it's a thing, but I just feel like I feel like it's something like, oh, it's something I do on the side, kind of dabbling. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why I like to say, I call them, extra sources of income. Streams of income,
yeah,
right?
extra stream of income.
Maybe
That's
somebody
better.
more passive, somebody more active. So you could say.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be my more passive, but even that's a little misleading. But yeah, side hustle, passive income. I do the vending machine business. And those are the two things we do. The vending machine business, my wife takes care of that for the most part. The day-to-day stuff, she takes care of that. And I just come in when there's something bigger that needs to be addressed, repairs and maintenance, and things like that.
So just real quick, we'll kind of dive deep into the vending machine and maybe like give us a little bit of a blueprint, right? Specifically for those folks that are watching and are interested in getting into the vending machine space. Maybe how we got started, how what does it take as far as initial investments, where do you source them, etc. Right? But before that, I wanted to ask you, what was it like growing up? What's your money story?
So my money story. So I guess you could say it was a little bit of like, somehow I was led to believe that pursuing money is a bad thing, or wanting excess is a bad thing. I'm not sure exactly how that got in, but a lot of times that gets into your upbringing, especially if you're from like a middle class or lower family. And so my parents never really taught me how to invest or how to run a business, but at the same time, nobody ever taught them. The best thing my parents taught me was work hard. Work hard. That's it. My parents came from Mexico, and they came from nothing. They were dirt poor, and they came here and they worked hard. That's all they knew to do. They to open up their own business was unfathomable to them.
Exactly.
Just to come here and make a decent living was an accomplishment for them. So I was never going to learn how to run a business or a side hustle or anything like that from them. But they taught me how to work hard.
The work ethic. And sometimes that's what it is, man. Like sometimes it's that work ethic. Not a lot of people have it, right?
And it's definitely a big plus for like financial freedom. That just grinding it out.
I find that very, like inspiring in general. The work ethic, hard work ethic that are given to us, and the consistency, right? Waking up every day. I used to ask my parents, how do you do it? Like, how do you get motivated? A lot of times you just have to, right? But you pointed out, a lot of us, like I'm from Mexico, right? I come from an agriculture background as well. So a lot of it is the more input that you have, the more output you have, right? But I feel like that gets mistranslated here. You go work in a company, right? Meat packing industry, other kinds of industries, and it doesn't translate to the same, right? Because here it's a little bit different of like, you're more of a number, so it doesn't really matter how much you produce, right?
Yeah.
So it's very sad to say, but that's a realization that I've had, myself and my parents. So definitely I think the work ethic is one of the best things that we can be given, right? And the rest of it is the opportunity that you might find. But
yeah, when it came to financial freedom, I had to learn that later, like in my late 20s. I was working as a mechanic, and I was like, I was getting married, I was, starting a family, and I was seeing, I'm not really getting anywhere. Things aren't getting better for me. I'm working hard, and, I've gone from company to company, and it's always the same thing. I'm making a living, but it's not like, it's not, I'm not wealthy, or I'm not, I don't feel like there's abundance, and if I were to ask for a raise, like, okay, here's 25 cents. What's that going to translate into? What's that going to translate to you in a year? No, so I started educating myself, reading financial literacy books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Millionaire Next Door. I think for a lot of people, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was just like a big one, right?
It's like one of the hits.
One of the big ones.
Not necessarily cliche, but I love I actually bought that book for my younger sister, niece, and nephew. I think one of the most important things, in my opinion, is understanding that difference between liability and assets. And I wouldn't say that's a financial book; it's more of a mindset book.
Mindset, yes,
agree?
yes,
Okay.
exactly. No, you're 100% right. But that's what it is. You're walking around in the dark, and you're raised to think, I work hard, things are gonna work out, and that's not the way it is. That's not. It's your mindset, you know, and that's the problem. I think a lot of people that worked like in the 50s, you know.
Exactly.
It doesn't work in this new century, in this new day and age. You got to be a little bit more savvy. You got to kind of study what wealthy people do, and just if you could take a piece of what they do and apply it, you'll be a lot better off. And that's what these books are for. Like, they kind of wake you up. They change your perspective.
Exactly, and part of it is, I mean, sometimes you could say there's a reason, right, for people not to sort of have access to a lot of those financial education, right? I think, in my opinion, the current education system and a few other things are meant to make us into employees, lifetime employees,
Exactly.
rather than kind of question, you know, different methodologies, even your creative kind of mindset, and that's just kind of my opinion. But
I know I 100% agree with you, and I'll talk to friends or family, and I'll see like the complaints they have, you know, about their job or how they don't feel like they're getting anywhere, and it's like their education, it's lacking. You know, they need to read books. They need to learn what actual investing is, because everything you do is basically an investment.
yeah,
Whether it's your regular job or your side hustle or whatever. So you need just a mindset shift, I guess.
yeah, I agree. Like you mentioned, everything's an investment. I think things, you know, your physical health, that's a long-term investment, ongoing long-term investment. Your mental health, I mean, a lot of it, even the people that you associate yourself, right? It's reading that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and I think there's some truth to that, you know.
There's a lot of
And
truth to
especially
that.
if you have people that are willing to share ideas, you know, kind of bounce it off from each other, right? And maybe this thing might not work for me, but it might work for you. So definitely, everything, I agree, everything's an investment. And just kind of going back to the vending machine, right? So kind of maybe that's why some of the listeners are kind of waiting for. So I guess you mentioned that part of the reason you started looking into this quote unquote side hustles, right? It's because you realize that a lot of times our primary job might not be enough, right? The raises that we get are not enough, right? So sometimes, you know, we have bills to pay, or, you know, do we see opportunities? Then that might come across, right? So if I was getting started if I don't know anything about vending machines, like how could I get started?
Okay, so before I answer that, let me just take like a small step back.
Sure.
One of the biggest things I learned from, you know, reading those books was, like, let's say there's something you want, right? Let's say you want a sports car, or you want to buy a house, or whatever. Something that seems unfathomable to you at the time because you don't make enough money.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can say right away is, I can't afford that. You know, that just closes all options to you.
Correct.
You know, and so I was taught, better question is, how can I afford that? How can I figure that out? And so that's one of the things. While I was a mechanic and I was learning all this stuff, I was like, okay, I'm a mechanic, I'm married, I have a family. Next step, I need to buy a house, but I can't. There's no way I could get the house I want with this current salary I'm making. So instead of saying I could never afford a house like that, how can I afford it?
Gotcha.
You know?
So
And so I was working at the current job I was at. The last job I was at as a mechanic, I had the best manager I could ever ask for. She was very much kind of like your mindset or my mindset, where she was just trying to think on another level. You know, she was a manager of this airport parking company, but she was always looking at, where can I invest? What else can I do? Okay. And so in this company, our vending machine service was horrible. And so that, my mind was open, my eyes were kind of looking for these opportunities. Bam, there it is. Okay. And I would ask the guy that would come in to service them, hey man, so how much did these pull in? And he'd give me some ballpark figures and everything. So I mentioned it to her, hey, would you like another service? Would you like somebody to come in and can do it better? And she was like, oh yeah, that'd be great.
Nice.
So I started researching vending machines. I got in contact with a guy who's been doing it for years, and he had like a storage room full of machines to sell. And initially he was going to sell me a certain set of machines. And so I was like, all right, I gave him the money. Where I got the money from was, and there's a thing, like, well, no, we'll go back to that in a minute. So he sold me a set of machines, and I told him I'd let him know when to place them, because I still had to go seal the deal with my manager. I went to my manager, I showed her the machines, and she hated them.
Were they outdated, or what was?
They were old, outdated machines, and I'm telling you, this is the best manager I could ever have, because she didn't hand me anything. She didn't make anything easy for me. She was like,
she challenged you.
She challenged me to, hey, step up. If you want to do something, do it right. Do it 100%. There's no shortcuts. But her name's Natalie Blanco, okay, and she's great. She's in Austin now. She's a real. Shout out to Natalie. She's in Austin. She's a real estate investor now. It's like she's an inspiration. Anyways.
Real quick, you mentioned do everything right? Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that a lot of folks, that's why there's a lot of people that fall into online scams, because they want quick and easy, right?
Yeah.
Quick and easy crypto, Forex,
mm-hmm.
etc. So
mm-hmm.
if you're watching, if you're listening to this, anything that sounds like, quick and easy, get rich schemes, it's never ever a good deal, right? So
most of the time it doesn't pan out. I figured that all along the way too.
But yeah, I agree. If you're gonna do something, do it right,
mm-hmm.
and do spend that quality time doing your research, your due diligence, right? A lot of times, something that worked out for you might not work out for me, and part of it is that consistency. And maybe I get lazy, maybe I really don't want it, right? So it's part of it is I also feel like it's asking yourself, what is it you want? Kind of where your point earlier, asking yourself, how can I get that, right? But envisioning or putting that as a goal. But I think people might get confused with side hustles and passive income as something easy, right? You're gonna set up your vending machine, and it's not that way.
Yeah. Go ahead. So. And it was really a challenge to me, because as a business owner, because now you're trying to shift your mind frame to a business owner, because that's basically what you're doing. You have to have a different mindset. You have to be mature and responsible. Mm-hmm. So when she basically rejected me, like all of a sudden these rush of emotions went through my head. Like I was upset. I wanted to quit the job that I had, the original mechanic job, like I just felt betrayed, all these emotions went through my head, but eventually, I just got a grip, and I was like, okay, let's be an adult, okay, and let's use this as a learning experience. But it's just so funny, like, your own mind can be your worst enemy mm-hmm. sometimes,
For sure.
But if I would have followed through on any of that, I'd be way worse off now, But, so I went back to the drawing board. I got a hold of the guy that sold me the machines. I told him, hey man, do you have any better machines? Because these machines, they're not going to cut it, And he showed me some better machines. They cost more. I was like, all right, well, this is what I'm committed to. So I put it on a credit card, And so that, I wasn't excited about that, racking up credit card debt. But I was like, if this is worth it, it's going to pay itself off. And so be it. And so she already shut me down, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go find another place for these machines. So I would hit the pavement, and I didn't even do it that much, but just from one afternoon of hitting the pavement, like knocking on businesses on their doors and asking them, hey, you need a vending machine? I found a spot that was willing to take them. that felt they had a need for them. I put them there, stocked them, and long story short, they didn't do well at all in that place. But hey, at least I was started.
Yeah, exactly.
But I went all out there. Those are nice machines, but the business didn't have a lot of foot traffic. Didn't have a lot of employees. The product was going bad because not a lot of consumption. But I left them there because at least they were somewhere. They weren't in my garage. They were somewhere. And so finally, through one of the conversations with my manager, she was again just talking about how she just wasn't happy with the service. And I was like, hey, well, I got these better machines, newer, look nice. What do you think? And finally she gave me the green light.
Wow. That's awesome.
Finally she gave me the green light. And so, I put them there. I put them in that location. And it was so convenient. It was so convenient because I worked there.
Yeah.
Any complaints they had, I took care of it. And my wife would, like I said earlier, my wife would take care of stocking them because I didn't want to be kind of conflict of interest.
Did you have to pay anytime you got any snacks from there?
Yeah, a lot of time I would. Yeah, I would pay. I would because I didn't want to. I didn't want to see people seeing me opening the machine.
Yeah.
And then pulling it out. I just felt like that lacked integrity.
There you go.
So my machines, they have a credit card scanner, so it was so convenient too. I would just pull up my Apple Pay and just put it to the machine and get my product. And nobody cares. I don't carry cash.
So quick question. Initially, when you reached out to the guy that had those machines, did you go based on the pricing, or did you look at the machines and you're like, well, this might work? Because
initially, I went on the pricing. Okay, so we did our tax returns, and they gave me a refund. I don't know, $2,000 or something. And I was like, me and my wife were talking about what to do with this money. And I was like, look, we can do anything with this money and it's going to come and go. We need to invest it in something. So I got her on board with buying the machines. But really, that amount of money isn't really a lot to buy good machines. So like I said, I looked at price. I can get the cheapest machines. That's why I got shot down. And like I said, I put the rest on the credit card. And I was able to get better machines.
What's a decent? I guess I'm assuming you can either buy them new or refurbished, right? What's a decent amount for say refurbished machine?
So a refurbished machine from a reputable provider is probably going to cost you like a snack machine. It's going to cost you anywhere $1,500 to $2,000. Well, maybe under $3,000. Refurbished machine from a really reputable company. But that doesn't necessarily. So my background in being a mechanic, I always like to learn how things work, and it's really not that hard once you have experience in it. So a lot of times I was able to go buy the machines for cheaper than that. I would go to Facebook Marketplace, I would go to Craigslist, OfferUp, and people have their machines there, and I would buy them for less, like a lot of times less than $1,000, but they would require repairs.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so I perform whatever necessary repairs. I go online, download the manuals.
Nice.
Internet's awesome. I'll download the manuals, and it'll tell you everything you need to do for troubleshooting. I would get a hold of the manufacturer, order my parts through them. I find out who sources vending machine parts here in Houston. Also go through them. Sorry. So that's how I get my machines basically. For the longest time, I'm always kind of scouring the internet, the Facebook Marketplace, seeing if I could find machines for like a steal, because they're out there. But if you're starting out and you don't know about machines, it's kind of hard to spot those good deals,
So I like to take advantage of Facebook Marketplace, but I know nothing about vending machines. So what would be some indications that might be a good deal, or even from manufacturing, right? I know there's specific brands that might be more accessible in terms of parts, right? So what are some of the things that I would look for, so I get started?
So with vending machines, okay, well let's make this distinction first, because there's a variety of things in vending, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about full line vending. That's what I do. Okay, and that's where you provide snacks and drinks out of the vending machine.
The vending machine has both.
Yeah,
Okay.
Or you'll have a machine for sodas and a machine for snacks or drinks.
Okay.
Like, because then there's a little bulk vending machines where you put a 25 cents and get a little
gumball.
They call that bulk vending.
Bulk vending.
And that's easier to get into, cheaper price point, but also the returns are kind of like they're smaller.
Have to focus on quantity. And
exactly. So that's why I like full line.
Got it.
But I'm sorry, what was your question again?
Yeah, the question is if I'm looking, Facebook
what
Marketplace,
brands?
brands, and
So if full line's what you want to get into, then stick with the American brands. Stay away from Chinese, because the support for the American brands is so much better. And getting parts for the Chinese brands, a lot of times it's harder. The machines don't work as well. They're not as reliable.
Got it.
So some of the Americans brands for sodas would be USI or Wittern, Royal, Dixie Narco, and those are 4 brands just for the. Those 4 brands also make the snacks machines too, though. So any of those 4, there's also automated products, AP. Any of those 5, you'll be okay. So now, aside from that, you're looking at brand, but also just look at the machine. You can tell from the styling when it was made. I go on Facebook Marketplace and I can tell, like, these machines just look dated. Like 80s or early 90s.
Exactly.
Stay away from that, because the technology used to make those, it's not going to work for you now. And when those machines need repairs, you're going to have a headache. So just look at the machines and see how good they look, okay? Do your research as far as the technology that drives these machines. A lot of times, you want them to have like MDB protocol. So basically, how the machines operate now is there's a central circuit board that controls the entire machine.
Like a motherboard?
A motherboard, like on your computer, okay? And then everything will connect to that. So your coin changer machine will connect to that. Your dollar bill machine will connect to that. If you want to add a credit card reader, it'll also connect to that. Everything connects to that. If you open up a machine and it doesn't have a motherboard, I mean, that's a red flag. This is an old machine, and it's an old machine. Stay away from it.
Operate differently. Got it.
It just operates more simply, and in this case, it's not what you want, because when you want to upgrade, it's not.
Is there a non-factor? Is there different kinds? So say if there's a Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, but it doesn't provide, say, a lot of pictures, or maybe it's hard to tell, right? Is there a differentiation between like the manufacturing and maybe a model number that that after this were built in before 1990s versus after?
It's hard to be able to tell, because I just named you 5 American manufacturers, and they all kind of operate. They all label their machines a little differently.
Got it. So
I think the best thing to ask if you're trying to source a machine is just straight out ask the person selling it. Does this machine accept dollar bills and coins? Can it be upgraded to accept credit card readers? You might want that, you might not, but you always want to have that option.
Can I help too? Can it be both?
Yeah,
can it accept
it can do credit card machine, Apple Pay, dollar bills, and coins. It should be able to do all those 3. A machine worth getting should be able to do all those 3.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because at the university, I was doing that. I would forget, I didn't have any cash, so I used my Apple Pay, And I think that also allows you to maximize, to kind of reach out to your customers, right? Especially those that don't carry cash anymore.
So we're becoming a cashless society more and more, whether you hate it or not. It's just a fact. I don't even carry cash anymore. On my way to here, somebody on the street started washing my windows, and I felt bad because I couldn't give them anything. I didn't have any money.
Later, they're gonna have those readers. Those.
I hear in China, like even the street vendors can do moneyless transactions. Like they just pull out their phone, and it's great. I mean, I wouldn't know personally, but I've just seen videos. But like I said, ask those questions. Can it accept credit card? That's the main thing. If you ask that and they say yes, then you're probably going to be okay. In order to accept credit card readers, there has to have a MDB connection. To the motherboard. Okay, you could just do a Google search on what that looks like. So when you go look at the machine, you can verify that yourself. But if you ask that main question, you'll be okay. As far as the technology that drives it, you want it to be able to keep up, because this is something you're not going to do for 6 months, right? This is something, for a good while. Right? So you don't want something from the 80s or 90s. So I guess to put it simply, because I could get really specific with what you want to look for, but at the same time, it's kind of intuitiveness too. So it's hard for me to put into words some of the things I look at.
So it's more of a, once you start, if you purchase your second machine, right?
Exactly, it's from experience.
You're gonna start.
Yes,
with those, right?
It's from experience. Like I bought this machine, and this is what I don't like about it.
Gotcha.
So next time I bought my next machine, it's gonna have this and that. And so it's kind of like trial and error. But I guess that's the main thing I could tell you. Ask if it can accept credit card reader. You're going to save yourself a lot. If they say no, don't even touch it. So
you touched real quick on kind of like the pricing, right? The difference between like a refurbished or how much do new
new machines are going to cost you, like brand spanking new. You're probably looking at $4,000, 5,000 for either the snack or the soda.
Gotcha.
Be honest, I haven't even looked into that, because it's just
focusing on the.
I was just. I guess I've just been lucky to say, hey, I can find good machines at a good price because I'm willing to do the grunt work.
Got it.
I mentioned to you one time I bought a soda machine one time, beautiful soda machine, for like $200, and come to find out it wasn't cooling. Sorry. I bought a new compressor for it, or cooling unit, an entire cooling unit for it. That was like another $400. And then 2 months down the road, the ECM, or the computer on it, goes out. That's another $200. But I was able to figure this stuff out through the manuals, through just doing the research, and I was able to get it going. So that's something I had in my favor. A lot of times when you're starting out, calling a tech, it's kind of it can seem a little intimidating, right? Because you don't have a lot of capital when you're starting out.
Exactly.
So another thing that's going to help you is like relationships, right? Find a tech. If you don't consider yourself very savvy or like good at fixing things, then find the tech that you feel you can trust, that communicates well, and he's going to be your guy, and he might not be available to you to fix a problem that day, but communicate with him. Hey man, I need you to look at this. When's the soonest you can be here?
So you're telling me that anybody looking into get into the business, they can just give you a call and you can help them out.
That's it's like that. I think that's basically what happens nowadays. there's a coworker of mine. I kind of helped them get into the business, and I would give him advice, and he followed some advice, and he didn't follow other advice. Like he got older machines, and now he's having some issues with them, and so I feel bad because he'll call me with these problems, and I'll be like, hey man, I'll try to get to it, but I just got a lot going on, you know, and I don't. But I think one of my defects is I have a hard time saying no, you know. So it's just I'm like, okay, man, I'll try to get to it, and I'll never get to it, you know. It's like I don't even know if he ended up getting it fixed.
It's too funny. Yeah, just real quick, it's without sort of sidetracking. So you touched on what a person should look for when they're looking at this vending machines, whether it's Facebook Marketplace or other Craigslist, etc. Right? The 4 or 5 different vendors that one can trust, right? And also, where if you're looking for new machines, is that outside of those sort of social media? Is there direct? Would you buy them directly from the manufacturer?
Yes, you could buy them directly from the manufacturer. You can find out, like in your city, your vending machine vendor. Here in Houston, they're over there off of 290. I forget their name, but I'll look it up later. But you can order through them. You can order through them, or you can order through the dealer. A lot of times, it's better to do local because they can take care of the shipping. That's not a headache you got to deal with. Because one time I bought a refurbished machine from a reputable vendor in Georgia, and they shipped it to the new location that I was going to place it at, but they used a shipper that they didn't do a good job. So when it arrived, it was basically in pieces.
Wow. So.
Yeah, I was freaking out because I was planning, hey, take it off the truck, put it in place.
Exactly.
You know, bam. You know, no. I had to take my time and fix everything, and so I would say starting out, you don't have much resources, go local. I would say that, and if you're gonna buy new,
maybe spend that extra spend that extra money on the fragile shipping.
Exactly, or let your local vendor worry about whether it arrives in one piece or not. You know.
Gotcha. Another thing I've kind of read is that the location aspect of it, right? Like it's not a matter of just ordering it and having shipped to your house and then you having to do the hard work of taking it, right? Can you touch a little bit about how do I actually? I mean, even if I think from what I understand is that you want to focus on the location first and then actually think about the vending machine. Is that right?
So. Buying the vending machines is the easy part of this whole business, and there's a million people out there that are very willing to sell you a machine. The hard part of this whole business is finding a location that's willing to give you a chance.
Got it.
Okay, and the location has to be worthwhile. So. And for everybody that could be different, but yeah, you need to write down on paper a criteria that a location needs to meet for you to want to put the machine there. So general rule of thumb for full line vending is you want minimum of 30 employees and or high foot traffic.
Okay.
Like a lot of people coming in there. If they're like a captive audience, that's even better. Like let's say a mechanic shop that, you know, touches a lot of cars. And so you got people sitting like a dealership. Yeah. And you got people sitting there hours on end, you know, vending machine. That's a great spot for a vending machine, right? A factory, you know, with a lot of workers, like, I don't know, an Amazon warehouse or something. That'd be a great spot.
Great for drink Gatorade, kind of water.
And that's what the kind of business it is going to dictate what kind of products you want in there.
Got it.
A gymnasium, maybe you'd want health products in there. A factory, you'd want maybe energy drinks or, you know, electrolyte drinks or just sodas. But yeah, That's what you want for location. At least a minimum of 30 employees and high foot traffic. Either those can be separate. Like if it just has maybe 3 employees but a whole lot of foot traffic, I mean, it's still doable.
So things like clinics, washaterias.
Washaterias are awesome.
Yeah.
If you can get in a washateria, yeah, you got it made.
That's,
you know?
Yeah, those are probably the most competitive ones.
Yeah, but those are very competitive. This is a very competitive industry. That's why I was lucky to get my start through networking, through the people I know. And that's what I would recommend to anybody wanting to get into this. Use your network. Use the people you know. People you know, they work in places.
Exactly.
You know, they go places. And so...
Can you touch a little bit? I know you have a few locations in the airport. Can you kind of tell our listeners where exactly those are placed? When I'm walking through, there was the airport, right? Sometimes I see some machines in the parking lot. Sometimes I see them more in like the lobby area. So
I guess my 2 biggest accounts is at the two. So Houston has 2 airports: Hobby Airport and Bush Intercontinental Airport. And so I am the sole provider for an airport parking company, and they have one location at both airports. So I service both the locations. But my machines are in their employee break room. So I mostly take care of their employees, because their customers, a lot of times, they just want to get there, park their car, and be shuttled to the airport. Exactly. They don't got time to go stop and look at that vending machine. Which is fine, you know, those machines still do fine for me. And they do fine for me according to my standards, because some other companies might have like higher, you know, they want higher income or whatever. So figure out what you want and make sure it meets that.
What's you touched a little bit on that monthly sort of income. What's a good or decent, and to your standards, what's a good monthly kind of income?
Per location, it's hard to say, because it's like I said, when I started this, I was like, man, if I could just get started, you know, I'll be happy, you know. And it's hard to answer that question, because before COVID, you know, I was making almost like $1,000 a month, you know, from my vending business. And I only had 2 locations at that time, and I was making almost $1,000 a month, you know. And for some people that's great. For some people that's like laughable. But that was good for me, you know.
I mean, that's better than a lot of side hustles. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a side hustle, right? And I was doing minimal effort for it, right? But during COVID, oh man, that just went down. That amount went down so bad. They laid off. I mean, the airport industry was one of the hardest industries hit. So my monthly income was just so low. I mean, it was seriously at points where I thought, man, just give up, you know. I mean, like I said, your mind's your worst enemy.
Exactly. But especially during that time, everything you watch is all negative news.
Exactly. You know, but no, you know, I can't quit. I can't give up. So we kept sticking it out. We made adjustments where we needed to. We found opportunities, you know, where we needed to, and that kind of helped us. You know, we weren't making the $1,000 a month, and we're still not, but we're doing better.
That's good. So
right now I would say we're making maybe at least $500 a month. You know,
per location or
altogether.
Okay.
Like I said, these places, they're not huge. I don't have a laundromat or a car dealership or something. You know, not yet. But we're getting more locations and we're steadily growing. I just got like a place here by Hobby Airport. It's like a industrial equipment rental company. They have like probably 25 employees, 20 employees, and growing. So I'm looking at the daily reports, so I'm happy with how they're doing.
So if you have location, right? So I found a location, right? How do I approach? You mentioned networking, right? It's good if you already have that built relationship with the people that work there, right? How do I approach them? Because I'm sure they want commission, or how much does the vending machine, in terms of electric bills, etc.?
So, very good question. Commission, right? Don't mention commission. Let them mention it. Let them mention it. Okay. A lot of places, a lot of companies that are doing well, they don't care about commission. Some places might. Okay. So you got to decide if it's worth it for you to offer commission. Typically in the industry, 10 to 15% of net profit is kind of the industry standard. That's kind of right there, because you're still doing all the work, and really the energy consumption of these machines isn't really that high.
Is it compared to a fridge?
Yeah, I would compare it to a fridge on yearly consumption.
Got it.
Because a snack machine, all you're doing is powering like a motherboard that occasionally moves some auger motors. It's not very high energy. So so then your soda machine will be your higher consumption because it has a cooling unit.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's comparable to a refrigerator, which isn't really that.
So 10 to 15% commission.
Now, I'm sorry, let me cut you off in a minute. There are some places that will ask for more. I've had places ask for 25%. So, like old Frankie would say, that's ridiculous, you're insulting me, and we're done here.
Yeah.
But no, don't cut off options, look at the opportunities. Okay, you want 25%. Is this a 25% location? Meaning, is this a laundromat? Is this a high volume place? Is these machines gonna make me upwards of over $300 a month, or more? If it's gonna make you a lot of money, it might be worth it to offer 25%. If it's a high traffic area, like you're having to come in every week or twice a week, yeah, 25% is worth it.
Yeah,
But if it's average,
it's gonna take a
yeah,
Exactly.
I've had one location that was really, really slow, super slow, and the lady wanted 25%, and the place was probably giving me like $20 a month, of gross sales. Now do net, okay?
Yeah,
a net, that's maybe $10. Okay, what's 25% of $10? What am I gonna give you? $2.50? Really? You want that? Is that what you want? Are we gonna fight over? So with that lady, with that business, I had to say, hey, this isn't working for either of us. I'm gonna pull these machines. I'll give them a little bit of money for their troubles. No hard feelings,
Is there so if the business, say if I choose a location the owner is interested in, right, or maybe they have guests in the lobby area that they want to service, is there any kind of additional requirements in terms of like they need to set up a different electrical outlet or anything that serves that?
Normally your typical outlets, your typical 20 amp outlets are good.
20 amp.
Yeah, your typical outlet that it's on the wall, they're rated for 20 amps. If it's older wiring, it might be 15, and that's kind of borderline, but you want 20 amps. But most of these businesses are rated for that. If they're rated for that, you're good. What you don't want to do is the machine that has the highest energy consumption is your soda machine that has a cooling unit.
Exactly.
The cooling unit is your biggest energy consumer. So you don't want to put a soda machine somewhere and then run like a 50-foot extension cord to the outlet, because the longer the energy has to travel, there's more resistance.
Exactly.
And the more resistance there is, the less energy that high demand cooling unit is taking. So you're going to have more maintenance problems because your unit's going to be failing because you ran a really long and thin extension cord.
Does that apply also, like say if I put the vending machine on a warehouse when it gets hot, is that going to also take some?
Yes. If you put a machine outside in the elements, you're typically expect to have more maintenance and repair issues. Then if you put it inside a lobby, climate controlled, it's just a fact that the machine's gonna have to work harder to cool the products. But like I said, if the location is making the money, it's gonna be worth it. It'll pay for itself. Just manage your money correctly, and it'll take care of itself.
What's touching on maintenance? How often do you typically maintenance them, and how often did this last? Like a typical lifespan of a vending machine.
So maintenance on a lot of these machines is minimal. Like once a week, or whatever your interval is for stocking the machines, you just want to make sure you're wiping them down, make sure they're presentable, and then like maybe every month or so on the cooling units, make sure the evaporator, which is on the bottom, make sure it's clean, because fresh air has to be circulating there to cool everything. A lot of times it'll build up with dust and dirt, and if it's outside, maybe even worse, mud or whatever. So you got to make sure all that's clean, because in order for there to be the heat transfer that it requires, it has the cooling unit has to be clean. So make sure everything's clean, and that's basically it. And then, like I said, if it's outside, your cooling unit's not going to last as long. So maybe it's going to last you, ballpark guess, 3 years.
3 years,
I guess. Yeah, but those cooling units are very efficient. I mean, they last pretty well if you take care of them. Under ideal conditions, they can last you 10 years.
So pretty good investment.
Yeah, like a good fridge. A good fridge is gonna last you a while. The technology that cools fridges and cools these soda machines, they're very similar. They're similar.
And since you touched sort of on the products, right? You mentioned typically the soda machines are the ones that require a little bit more, right?
Yeah, because there's more that goes into it. Yeah.
And so in terms of the actual products, right? What's the shelf life of? I know you touched on two separate things, right? The soda machines and also sort of your standard chips and snacks, right?
Yeah.
What's the one? Where do you source them from? And two is, what's the typical shelf life for those?
So we source majority of our. So when you're starting out small, you're going to source a lot of your products from the kind of the big box membership places like Sam's Club and maybe even Costco. But I think Sam's Club does a better job at servicing businesses, where Costco focuses more on individuals. I don't have a Costco membership. I've only been there a handful of times. Yes. But when I went and did some scouting, I noticed that Sam's Club offered more things for like restaurant tours and food vendors, where Costco didn't as much. So Sam's Club for me. And then like every local city is also going to have like a business that offers products
specifically
for food vendors.
Got it.
Here in Houston, one of the main ones is Merchant Smarts. They're over there kind of off the medical center, and they're great. They have all kinds of drink products, chips. I mean, you can get everything you need from there. It's just that sometimes
can I get some Takis?
Yes, you can get Takis. You can get everything. But so now, as a operating as a business, you're always going to find who has the best price, and sometimes that place will have the best price. Sometimes Sam's Club might have the best price. Other times, you don't want to do all that legwork, so maybe you'll just get everything you need from one place. It just depends on your preference and how much energy you want to put into it. Sorry. But those are the two main places I go to. When I started, I was doing a lot of research, like, oh, this local supermarket's having a sale on Cokes or on Sprites. Let me go, hit them up, clean them out. But that's kind of exhausting, always keeping up with those sales and this going to 3 different supermarkets right when they're having their sale. that's taking up a lot of energy, and it doesn't feel like a side hustle anymore, right?
Yeah, it's just you have to.
You know, you're putting in
Scouting.
You're scouting, and it's so keep the places you source your product from to a minimal, and that'll make it less effort on your part. It'll make your life easier. Or if you're trying to source your product from 10 different places, you're going to be a lot busier. A lot more of your time is going to be consumed by finding products.
Is a typical, you mentioned merchant smart?
Yeah.
So
Merchants Mart.
Merchant
I think that's how it's just the names run together, so I always have a hard time figuring.
Do they sell to individuals, or
They
do you need
sell
to have a business?
No, they sell to individuals. They have limited hours. I think they close at 4. During COVID, they even limited their hours even more so. But now they went back to kind of more normal hours. So I think they're open like from 8 to 4 and close weekends.
Got it. How do you forecast? Because my assumption would be if I have a good relationship with them, the more I buy, maybe I might get a good deal, right? But I also don't want to have this inventory that has a limited shelf life.
Exactly.
So how do you?
So when you're starting out, I wouldn't worry so much about building like a business account, with like Merchant Smart or whatever your local vendor is. Just focus more on what your customers want, because every location is different. Because also another question is, what's the best products to put in your machines? But every location is different, because they have different employees or different customers. And I can tell you generally, like Coca-Cola will do well. But maybe if we're in the Northeast, Pepsi will do better, because Texas is just Coca-Cola country, right? Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper. Those things will do well.
It's interesting. Just a side story, real quick. When I used to work at a convenience store. Anytime a person walked in, they were going to ask for cigarettes based on their skin color or whatever it is. I knew what kind of cigarettes they want, so I know for sure that there are preferences even when it comes to chips, cookies, and specific things. So it's kind of interesting.
So every place is different. Exactly. Okay, and also let me just throw this out there. There's a lot of companies out there offering you a turnkey business for vending. Some of them have the name Healthy in it. I'm not going to call out anything specifically, but those, I'm going to just tell you guys right now, that's a ripoff. They're selling you subpar machines, and they're offering you placement services. They're basically saying they're going to do everything for you, and you're going to pay an outrageous amount. They're going to give you some machines that are worth maybe $2,000 put together, but they're going to sell everything for $10,000. That's basically how they operate. So any place offering to do everything for you, stay away from, because they're going to make you pay a lot more money than you should, and you're not going to get what you want out of it. To find locations, it's just that's the hardest part of this whole business, and you're gonna have to use your network, or hit the pavement, knock on doors, or use whatever you have at your disposal. Because I know you're good with technology and sourcing business potential places, but you need to find some kind of way to
actually do the No, I think you touched on the actual relationship, right? I think what I'm finding now, especially with real estate, is that this is a face-to-face kind of business, right? It's difficult cold calling, like even like to your point, right? Kind of where you're doing wholesaling with vending machines, cold calling businesses, people don't want that, right? But if you have another means to get in, maybe a relative or you already work there, leverage that connection, that network.
Exactly.
Just real quick, back to the spend the shelf life for the products. You touched a little bit on
we veered off off that, and that's very important.
Yeah.
So when you're starting out, okay, we talked about where to get your products from, but find out what your customers want and try to get those products, but get as little as possible, because your chips might have like a 2-month shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those have the shortest shelf life, really. Anything less than a month or two, you don't want, because you're in any machine, like a snack machine, you're gonna have like 30 different products in there. Let's say, on average, at least 25 different products in the machine, depending on the size.
Yeah.
If it's a smaller machine, it'll be less. So all those products aren't gonna leave, they're not going to be consumed at the same rate. So there might be a product or two that are going to sit in that machine for a month.
For a while, yeah.
You know? So keep a minimal amount of inventory. Like the big guys in this game, they have personal accounts with Coca-Cola and personal accounts with Pepsi-Cola, and they get a bunch of stuff through them, but they buy in bulk. Like
exactly.
They fill up a warehouse, you know? And, you know, but you don't want to do that starting out. Okay? Find out what your customers like, and hopefully you can source them from a minimal amount of places and keep just enough. Merchant Smart, they'll sell you like a box of chips. Mm-hmm. It's like a pretty big box. I think in the box is 50 chips, 50 bags of chips, something like that. So it could take up a lot of space. So keep the minimum amount on hand, because I think your bags of chips are the ones with short shelf life. Like your candies and your chocolates, those probably will last a year or something under ideal conditions. I mean, if you got them outside, they might melt in the summer.
Exactly.
But under ideal conditions, they'll last a while. Keep your machines kind of well insulated from like pests, you know, like
it's a good point. Yeah.
If it's in a questionable spot, I'll go ahead and throw some like rat poison in the bottom where they might get in through. I'll throw something like that in there to kind of dissuade.
Like moist and those things also attract roaches and a few other things. So that's actually a fair point. I actually don't hear much in other sort of videos that I watch. I don't hear much about actual that sort of pest side of main. Ideally,
you don't want that to be a problem. But I have bought some machines where I found like rat droppings in them, so I had to do a thorough cleaning before I did anything with it. And like I've even bought some machines that had product in it, and like I could see in the bags that they were nibbled on.
Oh wow!
So so like I said, thoroughly look at your machine. Find any small openings. Try to cover them up, and just go to the store, buy some rat poison, throw it down there. You know, some rat trap, like glue traps. Throw them in there. You know, and check them periodically. I've been lucky enough not to have any problem with rodents, but like I said, I take those preventative measures, and the places where I have them at, they're pretty well kept, so we don't really have a pest problem.
Got it. Now the other thing too, just kind of the product itself, right? How do you price it? I know, like say a bar of sneakers in New York would be like $2.50, right? It makes sense for them, but how do you go about pricing your chips and other items?
Another rule of thumb in the vending business is you want like 100% markup from your cost, right? So if something costs you 50 cents, then you're going to sell it for $1 at least, for it to make sense for you to sell. Mm-hmm. Because you're, and still you want to compare the price to like what the gas station is selling it for, and how would your price compare to that? Okay, and you don't have to compete with them, because it's two different things. You're selling convenience even more so than the convenience store, because you still got to go to the convenience store, but with the vending machine, it's right there in front of you.
Exactly.
So you can still justify a little bit higher price, but you still want to be reasonable and fair. Normally, with that rule of thumb, I normally see that my products are like right there with the convenience store, or maybe even less. some places I'm like less than that, just because it's hard for me to just because the vendor that sells them to me, they sell them like pretty expensive, like a lot of chocolate bars and stuff like that. They're selling them to me like at 70 cents each or something for like a regular size Snicker bar or something like that. So I would have to mark it up to like $1.50 or something like that.
Got it.
And I just don't feel like that's reasonable. Maybe I could get away with that. Maybe I couldn't. I don't know. But so I sell it at $1.25. So I'm making a little less than that 100% markup. But in other things, I'm doing better. So I feel like it evens out.
Got it. How do you determine sort of the heavy hitters, like the ones that the crowd favorites, like
put stuff in there, see what moves, and what doesn't move, pull it, okay, and experiment. Put something new in there and see how it does. A lot of times when I experiment, like I'll get my stuff that I'll source from my main vendors, but then I'll go to the supermarket and buy a couple bags, like buy 5 bags of Cheetos Puffs. It's just for research purposes. I'll put the 5 bags in there. Let's see how they do. Oh wow, they're gone in 2 days. All right, I'm buying a box of that stuff.
Oh, that's a pretty good indicator.
Yeah. So experiment. With the couple products. Another time, people kept mentioning they want actual food in the vending machines, which isn't realistic. Like that's not what you're offering.
Exactly.
You're not a food truck. But I found like these bags of I forgot who made them, but there was basically these pouches of like ready-made food, like macaroni or pasta, and you just toss it in the microwave, like the bag, and it was ready to eat. And I was like, awesome, that's food. Okay, I tried it. I bought and research. Again, we're doing research. I bought a couple bags from the supermarket. I heated it up. I tried it. I was like, okay, this isn't great, but it's consumable. Let's try it out. I put it in the machines. I followed that rule of thumb, 100% markup, and it didn't move. So hey,
Was that the same place that requested food?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. It was. So a lot of times people don't know what they want,
exactly.
Or because one guy mentions it doesn't mean the whole business wants
everybody
it,
else wants it. Yeah.
So sometimes you just kind of gotta take it for what it is. But that's trial and error. You got to figure out what your customer base at that location wants, and then try your best to offer it.
Got it. And once from the sort of the payment, going back to a little bit on the payment side, my assumption is that when you're processing credit cards and such, there's fees to pay, right?
Yeah.
So how do you compensate for those, or what's the process of even setting up with a merchant?
So then you buy the credit card reader. There's 2 major players in the credit card game for vending machines. There's Nayax, Nayax, and there's USA Tech, which I think USA Tech merged with another company called Cantaloupe or something. So I don't even know if that's still their name.
Yeah.
But there's the 2 main players. I deal with USA Tech. I haven't messed with Nayax much. But basically, you buy their hardware. You install it on your machine, and you call the corporate office, and you set up an account with them. Okay.
And again, you could do this at an individual level. You don't need to have a business, LLC.
No, you don't have an LLC.
Got it.
They'll ask you to fill out a form, and for the business tax ID number, you can just put your social security number. You set up the account. They get you set up. And it's basically they're putting like a cell phone signal on these machines, like almost like a cell phone service, and that's how they handle the transactions. So all these credit card transactions, Apple Pay and Android Pay, they'll accumulate, and then like on a weekly basis, whatever accumulates, they'll deposit it straight into your whatever account you give them. Direct deposit, just like a direct deposit paycheck, Like me personally, I'm seeing every week they're depositing like $50 into that account. And so that's the benefit of having these machines. That's $50 I wouldn't have if I wasn't
exactly.
if I wasn't doing cashless, right? So from all my machines, I'm like they're putting at least $50. I'm accumulating $50 of cashless transactions. So that's a win to me. But now for each transaction, the industry standard is to add 10 cents to the transaction. So if I buy a 75-cent soda from a machine and I use Apple Pay, then it's gonna cost me 85 cents.
Exactly.
And normally they'll let you know, there'll be a little sticker on the machine. Now, that's what they charge the customer, 85 cents. The vendor is going to charge you 6% of the transaction. And then aside from that, $8 a month for that credit card machine. Okay?
So you're basically leasing it. Kind of how you lease your home
yeah,
modem,
I guess so. But $8 a month. If nobody uses a credit card machine, it might not be worth it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But most of the places that I put credit card machines, people use them. So it's worth it. It's worth it. But I don't know. Like there might be a business where nobody, like maybe it's people over 40 years old who like to deal with cash and don't like to deal with cards and don't trust technology. Then maybe a credit card machine isn't a good place,
exactly.
for that location. But more often than not, credit card machines are the way to go. So $8 a month, I think 6%. So you still come out ahead like 4 cents on the transaction. So you're not really losing anything on your end, as long as the numbers are there for the transactions. If nobody's using it, then you're losing $8 a month.
From just kind of off the top of your head, like what's typically the percentage of credit card transactions versus cash coins?
So they normally tell you, like if you watch all these videos about vending, that if you were to add credit card machines to your vending machines, that it would boost your sales 20%. I would say that's pretty accurate. Around that, that's so 20% of transactions probably cashless, and then the rest is cash. So we're still seeing the majority being cash, but 20% is pretty significant.
Exactly.
Still, I'll take an extra 20%.
So I just thought of situations in which we, say you, the listener, might want to get into the vending machine, right? And you realize how competitive it is, especially how saturated it is in the washateria space, right? Would that be a selling point for that business owner to say, hey, I noticed you have a really outdated machine that doesn't take credit cards, right? And I'm assuming with the existing deal might be commission based, right? That might be would that be a good incentive for me to come and say, hey, well, I can actually upgrade that and provide you with a more upgraded one? Gives you more opportunities for people with credit cards and potentially increase sales. Which
you're 100% correct. Yes and no, because of the example you said. Okay, so in reference to finding a location. So the question is, me as a business owner, why should I give you a chance? I think from what I was learning is, what can you offer me? How are you better than the next guy? And that might be, I have credit card readers on all my machines. That's just standard. That's not something you got to ask for. Maybe that's how you get a leg up, because a lot of people prefer to do cash because it's easier to underreport your earnings,
I see, yeah.
So a lot of businesses that handle cash only, it's easier to manipulate the numbers. Where if you put a credit card machine, they basically, all your transactions are recorded on each machine, and then they send a report to the IRS. So you need to be doing your diligence as far as reporting your numbers, and paying your taxes and all that. But to the customer, you're offering that incentive. But to a laundromat, it's very cash heavy, oriented. So cashless might not be a big incentive to a washateria. It may not. I've seen some modern washaterias that they're not cash heavy.
Cash.
You go in there and you deposit all your money into a card, and then like you'll slide your card on each machine.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I thought that was pretty neat, but I mean, yeah, they're not cash heavy, but most washateries are.
Okay.
But a cash heavy business, they might not care about credit card readers. They might not. But
Got it.
always find a way to show your prospective location how you can be better.
So that's on your competitive advantage
Exactly.
over others.
Yeah, like, hey, like maybe you see a machine that looks empty. Hey, are these guys, you know, are they taking care of you? You know, because we service our machines pretty regularly. You know, we don't leave any just sitting there for a while. Or, you know, hey, I noticed they don't got credit card readers. You know, just find your competitive advantage.
Just ask, right?
Yeah.
Worst thing they can say is no.
Exactly.
So, no, it's been a good conversation, and I want to sort of summarize it. So I'll kind of summarize it, and then you can tell me if I get this wrong. But before you even think about sort of buying the actual vending machine, right? The first thing is find a good location, right?
Or at least find the location that express some kind of interest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it doesn't have to be a definitive yes, but a maybe. But starting from just buying the machines, I think you're already starting kind of behind.
Got it.
You know, instead of ahead.
Yeah. So location is a must, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second, you know, source the vending machine, and you can do this, you know, maybe through social media. Facebook Marketplace, etc. Right, and most of the refurbished ones will be at least anywhere from $2,500 to $4,000 or so.
Yeah,
got it. And then, you know, specifically, if you can source them locally, right, the best, because transportation costs, and also you want to make sure that your vending machine doesn't break along the way. And typically, what were the 5 vendors that are more sort of not necessarily trustworthy, but they're US
they're
based?
pretty reputable, US based, made with quality. Wittern, USI, they've merged into one. Royal, Dixie Narco, AP, or Automated Products. And what was the 5th one? Man,
We can come back.
yeah, we'll go back.
No
to it.
worries.
One I would tell you to stay away with. They're not American. Is Seaga.
Seaga.
Yeah.
The,
it sounds like the game console, but no, it's SEAGA. Sega.
Got it.
They're a foreign-made machine, and I hear that it's hard to put products in their machine. They don't fit very well. They jam up. I know I've seen some vendors use them, but I wouldn't use them personally. I wouldn't use them.
And then sort of the third one is, you know, once you're ready to actually source your product, right, make sure that you just don't go and buy everything in bulk, but consider the shelf life of those, right? Try to get as minimal as you can, right? If the machine does well and that turnaround rate is good, then continue sourcing them. Find a local provider, right, or visit your Sam's Club. But here locally in Houston, there's Merchant Smart that provides good some of those products, right? The fourth one is make sure you maintenance them, right? If they're in a hot area or even from any kind of pests, right, like rats or something else, make sure your vending machine is well taken care of, sealed, right? And I think, and obviously, once you first reach out to that person, that business, right? Don't bring the topic of commission, right?
Let them bring it up.
Let them bring it up, right? And typically, you said it's 10 to 15%.
That's the industry standard.
But if you think it's a really good location and if they want more, maybe work with them, as you know, it's better to have that opportunity.
And also adjust your prices accordingly. If you're going to give a bigger commission, then you're going to mark up the prices. Like certain hotels want a commission, and you can also justify selling like a can of Coke for $1. You know, or a bottle of Coke for $1.50 plus, because it's at a hotel. It's convenience you're selling, and you're giving a higher commission. So you gotta compensate for that commission you're giving them. So raise your prices accordingly,
depending on your
commission.
And then two, you know, when it comes to products, pay attention to your audience, right? See which products are going out. Maybe every once in a while, every quarter, test a new product, right? See if that's a hit, right? And then you can continue sourcing those. So would you say those kind of 5-6 points are the essentials?
That's pretty good.
Okay.
You pretty much covered it. I'm kind of blank on if there's anything else to add.
Yeah.
But no, you pretty much covered it pretty well.
Okay. So just that was sort of a little bit of the blueprint if you're interested in getting into vending machines. And since again this is a personal finance podcast too, I wanted to sort of ask you 2 more questions about money.
Okay.
What is your money motto or your money mantra?
My money mantra, I thought about this, and I think my money mantra is something I learned along the way. How can I give value? Okay, how can I add value to what I'm doing? So we're trying to earn a living or be successful at these side hustles, but it's not really about you. You know, you're starting this business because you want to offer something. Okay, and a lot of times, even through the lows, I've been able to gain personal fulfillment or satisfaction because I know I'm offering something to my customer that they want. You know, sometimes there might be a lapse, like maybe 1 week I dropped the ball and didn't fill the machines, and they're letting me know when I come back. You know, hey, you know, we're out of this product. You know, what happened? And that's kind of like a reassurance to me. Hey, you know, like I'm needed. You know, like if I disappear,
and they're keeping you accountable.
They're keeping me accountable. So that's how I add value. They want something, and I'm providing it. I'm providing convenience. I'm providing the products they want, but I'm also providing convenience because they don't have to drive somewhere, you know, or sneak out off of work or something to go get it. That's a plus for the business and the employee. But what value do I add by the business that I'm doing? I guess that's my money mantra. I don't know if that's too lengthy.
No, that's exactly right. And I mean,
it's not all about just me making money, you know, like how they're giving me money, but what am I giving them in return? And that's going to decide if I'm good at or if I'm successful at what I'm doing, right?
Exactly. And that's a fair point, right? We oftentimes, especially with your market research, right? We don't take the time to listen to our customers, right? And a lot of times that's our downfall, right? Just because we like a specific product, because we think this is a good idea, right? Right now, I'm asking, you know, I'm trying to think of my concept will be a coffee shop, but I'm a big fan of coffee in general, but others might not be, right? And the areas that I want to open a coffee shop might not be the best. So I think that market research, that listening to your customers of what value you're providing it's a great advice. So that, and I guess right now, you know, we'll conclude this, but I wanted to ask you, how can we follow you? What's the name of your businest? And
so the name of my vending business is Tanklin Vending. I'm on Instagram. Just type that up. TANKLYN Vending. I also have a Facebook profile with that same name, and also have just a regular website. But just look me up on Facebook and Instagram, and it'll pop up right there. I got content. A lot of it is on repairing and maintaining machines, because I feel like that's something that a lot of times is lacking, or a lot of people just like to put YouTube videos of them pulling out fat stacks of cash from their machines. Exactly. You know, it's easy to put that right and fall for that trap. You know, but the less reported, the less publicized aspects of it is like, you know, doing repairs, you know, taking care of the troubleshooting. I put that on my social media because I feel like that's not something they put enough. When I was starting, I was kind of having trouble with machines, and I'd research something and I couldn't find anything, so I just had to figure it out. So that's kind of, on my end, that's kind of something I try to value I add on my social media.
Exactly. Well, hey, thanks again. Thanks for coming, and I really appreciate this. And part of it is, like I said, part of this podcast, this type of format is, I want the listeners or the viewers to leave with something, right? So now you have a game plan, blueprint that you can go and execute, right? But the difference is that, don't just take notes, execute on this. It's doable. Frank has been very successful at making at least, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 monthly, right? And you get a lot of help from your wife as well. So I think it's really admirable, and again, I appreciate you for being here. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to Franky here, or at least any questions, or at least watch his Facebook content. So if you want to learn more about how to maintenance, or just maybe see a day in the life of someone that does a vending machine. So anyways, yeah, thank you, Franky.
It's a pleasure. And I always like sharing stuff about what I know. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna end this. And also, I think there's 2 people live at the moment. Do you have any specific questions for Franky? We're probably just a few more minutes and then we'll end this live. Maybe. All right, I'm gonna end it, and thanks for watching, y'all. And hopefully other people will find more value later on. So, peace.
Later.